So you might have guessed that was the first test burn with Mesquite, Aspen blended, 50-50 blend. And that's what the smoke looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of blue smoke on the outer edges, and again going into that gray smoke. That's the back side of it. And as you can tell, it went up pretty quick. But let me run my fingers through the smoke. Oh wow. Comes off real easy. But again, like everything else, you know, the smoke is solids. And that's what they look like. Yeah. So let me clean my finger off and I'll run my finger through the center of the burn. About par for the course. It's coming off pretty easy, the center of the burn. But make up your own mind. You know, I was pleasantly surprised with that test between Swiss and Mesquite. Didn't have to prick the charge or anything like that. And now that I've got it wiped off a little bit, that's what's actually left behind. I don't know how much you can see with the reflections off this glass. But I'd say that's actually cleaner than the Mesquite as to what is actually left behind. And that is the Mesquite by itself. This is blended. Alright. So before we get on to the open air burn that I customarily do, I just want to put something into the ether, okay? This day and age, a lot of people are surrendering common sense to artificial intelligence, okay? Let me put this into a context that I can absolutely relate to. Years ago, I used to manage a multi-million-dollar equipment rental yard. Okay, and this was in Flagstaff, Arizona. And because Flagstaff, Arizona is a college town, I used to hire a lot of college kids to help them with their, you know, everyday needs. Give them a little extra cash, give them some employment so they could get their education. And you know, one thing that I learned, that I observed quite readily about college kids, yeah, they may have a lot of book smarts, but there's no common sense. They lack common sense. Now, I come from an era as a mechanic to where you had to diagnose things instead of just plug in an electrical plug and have the machine tell you what's what. Okay, so what I do with my test burns is from the perspective of common sense. Let me show you how I quit doing my test burns early on, because it made no sense to me to be able to take a blowtorch and put a tremendous amount of heat on top of your gunpowder and say, yeah, that's quick. Let me demonstrate. See how quick that went up? That's some fast gunpowder, isn't it? I quit doing that because in my mind, putting that heat on top of this does not give you a good indication of how fast your gunpowder is burning compared to this. Here is 6.5 inches in a line of my Mesquite Aspen blend. I'm not burning a pile of it, I'm burning a trail of it. And if this goes up really fast, which I suspect it will, you can imagine how much more faster it's going to be in a thermal runaway. And I think that this is what a lot of people are forgetting to put into their context. The value of a thermal runaway, and this gives you a little bit better comparison as to how much more quicker it's going to be in your gun barrel, even if it is very quick here. Watch. Again, 6.5 inches. This is Mesquite Aspen blend, and this is my blend of 2,3F with 4F fines, but it's mainly a 3F. That went up pretty quick. One might argue not as fast as when you got a blowtorch sitting on top of the pile, but this gives you an indication that in a thermal runaway, it's going to be even quicker. So now, let's take a look at the plate glass to see if we can determine what a blend of Mesquite and Aspen might look like as to whether it's cleaner or dirty. You know, and the thing is a lot of people are dismissive of work like this. Okay. Now I can tell you from looking at the previous burn with Mesquite, this is a little bit cleaner. Is it going to produce the same amount of feet per second going down my flintlock? Well, only time will tell. But looking at the smoke, very easy to run my fingers through it. And as typical, you would expect to see this. And this is what's not being consumed in that thermal runaway. So you can actually see what's being left behind. Let me run my finger through what the burn is, and if you guys can look at it, those pieces are pretty small. And typically this is what would be left behind in your barrel. Oh, it's not near as gritty, and it comes off real easy. Yeah, it's dirty, but just like when I did the open air burn with Mesquite as a single source gunpowder, I said, yeah, I think it's going to be dirty. And when I shot it, it was dirty. But it produced very good results in feet per second. Yeah. It's coming off this plate glass real. In fact, I can almost dare clean the glass of everything. That's how soft it is now compared to some of the other stuff that I burned. But I'm going to do another burn because I still want to try to see if I can figure out why my second shot is so hard to load. So what I'm going to do is I have some of my homemade gun lube, which is a blend of coconut oil, olive oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, whatever it is. And another secret thing. I'm going to clean this off, and I'm going to take a rag and I'm going to wipe some of that on there. Then I'm going to do another burn on top of that and see what that reaction is. And as the can is letting everybody see, this is a blending of all my dirty gunpowders. I have 60 grains or thereabouts in a line, but I really want to see what the reaction is with my homemade lube, and if it'll help resolve the question I have regarding my second shot being so difficult to load. Well, I think you probably observed the burn was a little slower, wasn't it? And I'll tell you, there's a lot more stuff left behind on top of the glass. So I wonder if that's a reaction with the oils in that homemade lube. But did it keep the fouling soft? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the smoke. Yeah, there again, this is my dirtiest of dirtiest gunpowders. My finger went through it pretty easily, but the smoke, that is. But now let's go through the burn. Well, dirty, chunky. And maybe that's why I use a spit patch. Because oil and grease tracks dirt. Now I'm going to clean this off, and I'm going to try the same thing with that cleanse oil. So once again, I'm using my dirtiest of dirtiest gunpowders, and what I've done just to remain consistent, I took my cleanse oil, rubbed it over the glass, and then I took another cloth and kind of wiped it to mimic what I would do before I did a test shot. But either way, there's still always residual oil left in your gun barrel. So let's see what it does. Looks to me like it slowed down the burn, but this is my dirty gunpowder. I wouldn't have expected this to go up real quick. So there's the burn. And I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but I can tell you there's a lot of crap on the outside of this burn. So I got to ask, is that the reaction, and I tend to believe it is, with the oil left behind? But I had a similar result with the homemade lube, just not as much as with the cleanse oil. So rubbing my finger through the smoke, yeah, it goes through real easy. It's like it's real soft. And if you guys can look real close, you can see a lot of those white flakes on my finger. See, I didn't get this left behind with my blended mesquite, or actually anything, because see, now I'm testing to see how the reaction is with a lube. But yeah, there's a lot of crap on my finger that's outside with the smoke. See that? This is, in my opinion, the reaction with the lubes. And like I just stated, I saw the same thing with my homemade lube, but only not as bad. So I'm going to clean my fingertip off and run it through the main burn. Ooh, it feels a lot grittier, and a lot more stayed behind. I don't know how well you guys can see it. I'll try to move it around. It's kind of overcast. In fact, it's only 20 degrees in my shop here right now. It's a cold morning. But there's the finger. Okay. It's pretty dirty. So yeah, I think that it's that cleanse oil that's making it stick to the inside of that barrel. And that's why that second shot is difficult to load. But I'm going to do the same thing, only I'm going to test it with some of my cleaner gunpowders. Stay tuned. So as you can see, I've got it labeled. This is a blend of Aspen alder, and it burns very clean. And this is one of the powders that we tested down there in the Lube with my friend Broken Feather and Jonathan. So now I have 60 grains, and I'm using my homemade patch lube. The glass is rubbed, and let's see what it does. Again, the difference between my dirty gunpowder and my clean gunpowder. You can see the difference. Well, that smoke is a whole lot bluer, isn't it? There's still a few little pieces. I mean, it's like a fine dust is what it really is. It's just a fine dust. But all in all, it's clean, and that's why I determined this gunpowder to be clean burning. But let me run my fingers through it. Yeah, it's real easy to remove it. And to be expected, That's what's being blown out the front of your barrel in the smoke. Because black powder is very inefficient, even with a thermal runaway. Okay, let me clean my finger and I'll run my finger through the center of the burn. No, it's coming right off. It's coming right off. In fact, I could probably clean the whole thing with just my finger. So my homemade lube is keeping the fouling soft. Okay, so that might help with the first shot. If I made that first shot with my homemade patch lube, because that's actually pretty clean, really. Just rubbed it off with my finger. Now I'm going to note something here that I hadn't noted already. When I did that previous burn with the cleanse oil, okay, I used acetone on a rag. It didn't get it all off. So then I took a little acetone and I poured it right on top of where the burn was. And it still didn't get it all off. I had to actually go out and use water to finally break up that burn and clean the glass. So with that in mind, I'm not all that impressed now with cleanse oil. Okay, so I've got the glass clean. What I'm going to do is do the same thing, only I'm going to rub cleanse oil and we'll observe what that burn is. Okay, here's the test burn with cleanse oil. Rubbed on the glass, same as last time. I took a rag and kind of wiped it off, not hard, but like I would do with my muzzle loader. Okay, so here's 60 grains of my clean burning gunpowder. Now that went up okay. But all in all, it's clean. I mean, there's, again, the little pieces that are thrown out are just absolutely minute. And as you can see, the smoke is a lot bluer. Fingers going through the smoke real easily. But as typical, dirty, but you would expect that. So let's rub it through the center of the, oh, it's very hard. Just like last time. It's, you guys saw how I was able to, man, I'm really putting a lot of pressure on that, but you saw. Look at what that cleanse oil is doing. Yeah, you guys saw how easy it was for me to rub off the fouling with my homemade lube. And this is the same lube that I use when I sell my felt wads. And if you're interested at this point, Lane Beaver Trading Company over on Etsy, I still have an ample supply. So now I'm going to do one more burn. I'm going to clean the glass off, and then I'm going to do a burn, a 60 grain burn with my very clean powder so we can do a comparison at this point. So there's the jar of cleanse oil container with the patches in it. And I read this once already, but just in case you missed it, and I admitted when I read this the first time, that's a pretty bold claim, and I can't find this on their current cans. So it's obviously been removed. But it says, it is especially great for cleaning and rust proofing the bore of muzzle loaders, rifles, and shotguns. And as I just demonstrated and acknowledged, it was harder to clean off the plate glass than even my homemade lube was. So I'm wondering if that's not the reason why my second shot is so difficult to load. Because it's the winter months. When I get done shooting, I do wipe my bore with that. During the summer months, I'm not concerned about it because I'm just not. So now I have 60 grains of my cleanest burning gunpowder on this plate glass. No oil, no nothing. Let's see what it does. So once again, there's the burn. It's clean. Fingers are going through it real easy. The smoky residue, the smoke. Typical. You can't expect anything more than this. But this is what's being thrown out the front of your barrel. Even with a thermal runaway, you're still going to get this. Now through the burn. So as you would see, it's quite a bit caked up on it, but it's coming off the glass real easy, unlike it did with that cleanse oil. But not as easy as it did with my my homemade lube, and I suspect it would come off just as easy if I was using a spit patch, because I could do the same thing, mimic it, and it's a lot cleaner. Granted, I just wiped some of it off with this, but for the intellectual person, I think you can figure out what I'm getting at. So before I get out there and test this gunpowder, one last comment. Don't be dismissive on testing your homemade black powder on a plate glass, because if you could see that it goes up quick right here, it's going up that much more faster with a thermal runaway. All right, let's carry on. As you can tell, it's a little bit breezy this morning. It's about 10:15, 68 degrees, and let's get this out of the way. 80 grains by weight is 80 grains by volume, dead nuts. And I'll explain a little bit of this when we get finished and get into the shop. So let's get the camera turned around and see what the first shot does. 1869? Yeah, I think that's what it is. 1867. 1838. 1856. 1811. All right, I'm going to go mark off the target and we'll wrap this up in the shop out of the wind. Well, I'm glad to be out of that breeze, and you're probably glad you're not hearing it go across the microphone. Tried to edit most of that out. But I kind of want to get something out of the way first, because I'm also trying to figure out what's up with my second shot. What I did before I went out there is I completely cleaned the barrel once again and get rid of all of that cleanse oil that I used to lube the barrel. Then I went through and re-lubed it with my homemade patch lube, and it's the same lube that I use on my felt wads when I'm shooting my revolvers. Okay. Then before I started shooting, I took a rag and just kind of wiped that down like it normally would. The patch that I used in that first shot was also lubed with my homemade lube. So, how did that second shot load? A lot easier than it has in times past. I won't say that it was as good as loading, 3, 4, 5, and 6, but it was better than in times past. So I think I might be onto something with that. Now, as far as the patches are concerned, all but one patch was shredded. I picked it up and it must have blown off the table because I couldn't find it. I thought I had it secured enough, but when I was cleaning off the table, it may have just been caught in the wind and it's gone. But I will tell you, it looked a lot cleaner, and it was patch number 4. It looked a lot cleaner than when I was shooting Mesquite as a single source charcoal. So that was kind of encouraging. How did we do? Well, with the 6-shot average, it was an average of 1849 with a spread of 58. So what I did is I deleted that low shot of 1811 because I'm kind of wondering if that chronograph didn't pick up the patch a little bit, and that's why that number, you know, really dropped. But throwing that out and a 5-shot average, you got 1856, which really is not that much better than 1849, but what it did do is it made the spread go down to 31. So that's encouraging as far as Mesquite Aspen blended. And here's the target. It's all 6 shots. I took my ruler and measured it. It's 1 3/4 inches. Okay. Now, you might be asking, when you shot Mesquite as a single source, you did better. But I also shot this later in the day when the sun is more overhead. As I said, I started about 10:15, and the angle of the sun was, my excuse, making my front sight appear to be at the center when it's really not. So make of it what you will. I really don't care. If I was deer hunting, that'd have made meat. No problems. If I was at a rendezvous shooting at a target that big, I'd have rang steel. So, you know, those things are a matter of opinion as far as I'm concerned. But looking at the 2 targets side by side with Mesquite as a single source and Mesquite as a blended, yeah, this is obviously better. But again, time of day might make that little bit of a difference. Okay. Now, am I going to mess with Mesquite anymore? Yes, I'm going to actually do another blend. I haven't decided if I'm going to use my alder or peanut shell or mullein because I'm kind of like up in the air. Let me explain. What I've been doing in the past couple of days, I've been going through all my numbers and I'm throwing everything out where the, let's see here, my single source charcoal shots, first shots over 1800 feet a second. Okay, and what I found interesting on this, Osage alder didn't make it because the first shot with Osage alder was under 1800. So bear in mind, I'm only keeping track of my shots over 1800 feet a second, and that's the first shot. Okay, and I'm also tracking the 5-shot average over 1800 feet. And guess what? Osage orange didn't even make that. So I'm done with Osage orange, guys. I am. Okay, I'm done. But looking at my chart right here, the highest first shot over 1800 feet was Mesquite with 1924. It's a single source charcoal. My Mesquite target's right here, and this was a 7-shot average, 1915. So why should I keep Osage orange now that I've got something that's producing more gas in a 80 grain by weight shot? Why should I keep using Osage orange? Because it's not the best as of right now. Okay, now my first shot blended. First shot blended over 1800 feet was Osage alder at 1915. That's kind of why I want to use alder, blending it with Mesquite to see what this does. Okay, but again, that's the only reason Osage orange did better is because I blended it with a better source. Okay, Now my 5-shot average over 1,800 feet a second, once again, Osage Alder at 1,880. But it's right in line with Mesquite Aspen at 1,869. You're only talking 11 feet per second. Okay, but Mesquite on its own blew everything right off the charts. Okay, now what I'm also keeping track of are the spreads. Okay, now these are my lowest spreads up to 50 feet a second. Okay, this is single source charcoal. Osage Orange was 18. Yeah, it's got the lowest spread, but it doesn't have the highest feet per second, so I'm done with it. Okay, even though it does better blended, and even though it's got the lowest spread, it doesn't have the highest feet per second. Okay, the next one in line is my peanut shell at 34, and then my mullen at 38, and cherry at 34. But they all had higher feet per second with that first shot, and a higher feet per second with the 5-shot average. Okay? So again, these are what my numbers are telling me. You can do what you want with them. I don't really care. I know that my mind is made up because Mesquite Aspen blended only had a spread of 31 feet. Peanut Shell Alder, 39. Aspen Barberry, 23. So if you're going to compare the first shot or the lower spreads with a single source charcoal at Osage Orange at 18, and you've got Aspen Barberry at 23, you're just throwing pennies down a wishing well. That's all you're really doing, because that doesn't amount to anything. And the other thing that I want to touch on, just simply, I'm starting to hear and see other YouTubers now making gunpowder that's less than the industry standard as far as compression is concerned. And I find that a little disturbing, just simply because years ago when I was compacting, making my gunpowder with a 2-inch pucking die, I got so much grief in the comment section because my gunpowder is not up to the industry standard. Well, when I was pucking, say my junipers, I didn't get the best feet per second, but it burned a whole lot cleaner, and I've even showed the inside of my gun barrels when I was shooting it through my revolvers. Okay, so I kind of wonder if the grief is going to go the other way now, because I got a lot of grief from a lot of people in the comment section because my gunpowder is not up to industry standard. A whole lot of people sent me the whole little the charts with, well, if you puck it with 2 inch of 12-ton jack, blah blah blah, this is all you're gonna get. If you puck it with 1.5 inch jack, blah blah blah, this is all you're gonna get. You really need to go to a 1-inch pucking die. So I go to a 1-inch pucking die, and you guys want to know what I get? 1.80 to 1.81. So I'm right at industry standards with this. But I just find it a little disconcerting now that we've all achieved, at least for me, I've achieved what I wanted. Now it's going in the opposite direction. The world has gone insane. Okay? But I just wonder if the grief is now going to go in the opposite direction. I really do want to question that. So anyhow, I don't know if I'm going to record any more of my videos here, blending these, because I've got what I want. Now it's just a matter of looking at what Mesquite does, say with my peanut shell and or the Aspen or the mullen. And again, I've got what I want. I'm done with Osage Orange because it's not the fastest feet per second that I have. Mesquite is, and that's what I'm going to stick with for now. I'm just going to do a lot more experimenting with blending. So I want to thank everybody for watching what I've done in this channel. I hope that you'll share it with your bestest of buds. And we'll catch you sometime in the future. Bye.